Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kat, and today I'm going to be doing my January wrap up. If you hear rustling, by the way, my cat is under my bed right now, so we're just gonna pretend he's not there. So something I started doing last year was recording everything I read for the month on my iPad in a reading journal. So if you'd like to see me make a video about my reading journal and how I do all that, let me know. But that's what I'm going to be referring to as we move through this. So to get right into it, the first book I read of 2023 was Play With Me by Becca Mack. And that book is on Kindle Unlimited. If you haven't read Consider Me, I would recommend reading Consider Me before you read Play With Me. However, they are technically standalones. So Play With Me follows Jenny and Garrett. Garrett is an NHL player and Jenny is Garrett's teammate's little sister. And they're also best friends. So it is a brother's best friend situation. So it's kind of a forbidden romance and it is a friends with benefits situation. They know that they can't be together, but they both like each other, and it's kind of the conflicting emotions about if they want to be together or if they want to stay friends with benefits and deny the fact that they have real feelings for each other because of Jenny's brother Carter. I ended up giving it 5 stars. I loved this book. I love Becca Mack's style of writing, just like the 2 books, Consider Me and Play With Me. I know they're hyped up a lot, but they're genuinely so good and they're hyped up for a reason. So I started reading this book at the very end of last year. So I started it on December 28th and I finished it on January 4th. So it did take me a little bit longer than normal to finish it. But I have to say it is a hefty romance, coming in at 569 pages. However, clearly I gave it 5 stars, so it was worth it, and I would have read it for 200, 300 more pages. I honestly loved it that much. And some of the notes that I wrote in my review on my Kindle were that Becca Mack writes it in a way that feels like fan fiction, but like in an adult way. Like it doesn't feel like the childish YN style of writing, if you guys know what I mean. It's like adult, but it also gives you that same feeling of like fan fiction and like you're really a part of everything going on. Moving along, I kept it with the hockey romance theme because when you find something that works, you go for it. And you're gonna get a pretty consistent theme here that I found something I liked and I went for it. So I read Sin Bin by Tegan Hunter, and this is a part of a companion series. I don't want to misspeak, so I don't know the name of it, but I'm going to put it somewhere up here, the whole series. This book is basically about a NHL team social media manager and a member of the team who is quite a bit older than her. Well, it's not that much older, but there is an age gap. And they meet like 3 years prior at a bar and have a one-night stand. And then she comes and starts working for the NHL, having no idea that he is a member of the team that she's going to be working for. So it is definitely a forbidden romance. There's an age gap, and it is definitely kind of a grumpy sunshine situation. I only rated this book 3 stars. I didn't think that it was very good. I think that you just didn't really see them as a couple. Like they didn't have a lot of chemistry, in my opinion. I think the only chemistry I saw was really early on in the book, and then after that it was kind of just like boring. I don't know. And so I started that one on January 4th and I finished it on January 6th, and it clocked in at 332 pages. And also, I don't know if I mentioned, but that whole series and that book is on Kindle Unlimited. Next, I switched it up and decided to read a thriller, and one that was really highly rated. It's Jar of Hearts by Jennifer Hillier. And this book basically follows Gio, Kai, and Ange. And, well, kind of. They're all best friends when they're like 16, and Ange goes missing, and she is found to be murdered. About 10 years later, we revisit the whole situation, and Gio is engaged to a very successful guy. She has become a part of his business, very successful, very wealthy, doing good, and she ends up getting arrested in connection to her best friend's murder. So the book basically is telling the story of Gio and Ange and their relationship when they were 16, mixed in with the current day and kind of how those events played out, and figuring out what actually happened with Gio and Ange and the murder and everything. I feel like I can't say much more without giving some sort of spoiler, so just gonna leave it at that. I read this book from January 7th to January 9th, and I gave it 3 stars. This is also really random, but there is a part of the book that reminds me so much of the bell jar that it was driving me crazy until I figured out that it was the bell jar that it was reminding me of, because I was like, what the hell? I know this freaking book. Like, what the hell happened? Is what it is. I thought the book was pretty meh. I didn't really love the reveal. It wasn't much of a thriller to me. It was more of just like a true crime story type thing. It just kind of felt like a story with like a murder. It didn't feel like a thriller or a mystery or anything. It was kind of just like very boring, nothing really exciting. The twist wasn't really much of a twist. It was kind of stupid if you ask me, but it wasn't the worst book I've ever read by any means, so. Next, I read The Deal, going back to hockey romances. The Deal is part of the Off-Campus series by Elle Kennedy, and it is the first book in that companion series. They can be read as standalones, but they're recommended to be read in order, so obviously you started with The Deal. The Deal is about a girl named Hannah who is very smart, does very well in school, and she has a huge crush on this football player who is extremely popular, loves the ladies, and she thinks that he is just the total package. She thinks he has the best personality, he looks amazing, blah, 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 blah. And also in her class is a guy named Garrett, who is a hockey player, who is known to be kind of a ladies' man, gets around, very cocky, you know what I mean, a hockey player. And when they are taking this midterm, Garrett overhears that Hannah got an A, and he absolutely bombed the test, and if he does not get his GPA up, he will not be able to play hockey for the school anymore. So he starts asking Hannah if she will tutor him, and Hannah says, hell no, absolutely not. But he notices that she has this crush on Josh and basically convinces her that if she tutors him, he'll go on a date with her, which will make Josh think that she's like popular and available and like wanted. And so Hannah finally agrees and starts tutoring Garrett. And I'm sure you can figure out what's going to happen here. But this book literally, like, it gave me butterflies. Like, I loved this book. This is definitely, like, one of the best books I've read in a really long time. I honestly, like, I was expecting it to be good, but not that good. And it made me giddy. Like, I fell in love with both of the characters, and, like, I fell in love with their love. Like, I cannot recommend this book enough. If you've been seeing it everywhere and think it sounds like cheesy or not your thing, give it a try. I'm telling you, I gave it 5 stars, obviously, and I just cannot say enough good things about this book. And I read it from the 9th to the 10th, so I finished it very quickly. All right, the next book that I read was Addicted to You by Krista and Becca Ritchie, and I did already make an entire reading vlog review video about this book, which I will put up here. But I will give you a brief rundown in this video as well, obviously. Addicted to You is about Lily Calloway and Lauren Hale. They're both addicts. Lily is addicted to sex and Lauren is an alcoholic. And they have been fake dating for years now to hide their addictions from their family. They both come from very wealthy families. And if the families find out, obviously it is not going to be good. However, over the course of the book, as you can imagine, the fake dating starts to turn into more, and they are dealing with the consequences of both their addictions and how they affect them individually as well as in relationships, and kind of trying to figure out how to help each other, but they are kind of hurting each other the whole time. If you watched that video, you know that this book was not my favorite thing out there, and I ended up giving it 2 stars. I read it from the 12th to the 15th. And also, if you follow me on TikTok or watch any of my shorts, you will know that I thought Lo was a horrible character. But I do want to let y'all know that you convinced me, and I don't have it with me. I bought Ricochet, and I'm going to be reading that next, so. Next up was Regretting You by Miss Colleen Hoover. This book I read on Kindle Unlimited. It's one of the few Colleen Hoover books that is on Kindle Unlimited for some reason. I think she made a deal with that before she got so popular again in the last like couple years. So Regretting You is about the story of Morgan, Jenny, Chris, and Jonah, who are all best friends as teenagers. And as teenagers, Morgan and Chris get pregnant, and they end up getting married and having a child, Clara. And then right before this happens, Jenny and Jonah break up, and Jonah, like, disappears, falls off the face of the earth. Fast forward 17 years, 16 years, 16 years. We are following the story now of Morgan and her daughter Clara, and Jenny, Jonah, and Chris. When we fast forward, we also find out that Jenny is now pregnant with Jonah's child after a one-night stand after they reunited at his father's funeral. So Jonah has come back into the picture and is now an active character in their friendship. And then Jenny and Chris tragically pass away in a car accident, and the whole story is basically dealing with the aftermath of that tragedy and the revelations that come from that tragedy. And so it kind of turns in, not kind of, it definitely turns into kind of a single parent trope romance, and it also deals with a lot of miscommunication. So if that is something you don't like, would not recommend this book. Because I don't like this, I give it 2 stars, and that is because, one, I just hate miscommunication as a trope. I think that it's such a simple problem to solve, especially because majority of the miscommunication in this book comes from a miscommunication between Clara and Morgan, so a mother and daughter, and I think I just don't like reading about those kind of dynamics, especially when I'm like wanting more of like a romance. So yeah, I read this from the 19th to the 21st. This book was so hard to get through. I DNF'd it, and then I kind of came back to it because I just wanted to like finish a book. So yeah, not my fave. After that, I went back to the tried and true and read another hockey romance, and this time I read Lucky Hit by Hannah Cohen. This is a book on Kindle Unlimited, and this book is about Octavia and Oakley, or Ava and Lee is the nicknames that they go by in the book. Oakley and Octavia meet at a party. Octavia just discovered her boyfriend cheating on her, and now she is obviously upset. Goes outside during the party and sees Oakley sitting there, and they end up talking, and they like kind of spend the night just like getting to know each other, and then they kind of never see each other again. Fast forward, Oakley has just transferred to a different school with a different hockey team, and in the midst of all this, he ends up realizing that Octavia is also at that school, and we find out that her cheating ex is on his new hockey team. So it kind of tells the story of Octavia fighting the fact that she doesn't want to be with another hockey player after being cheated on by one, understandably. So Lee is really having to like kind of grovel and convince her that like he's a good guy and he's not going to do those things to her, and she is kind of fighting that. It's just a very well done example of kind of the like I won't date this type of person thing, because I typically don't love that. Also, everybody knows, well, everybody who reads romance knows, there's typically a third act breakup or third act drama that ensues. This book is no different. It does have that, but it is done very well. It's very realistic. It is solved the way that normal, real people would probably solve this problem, and that's something I really loved about this. So bonus points anytime a book is like, yeah, that would actually happen. So I gave this book 4 stars, and I read it from the 21st to the 23rd. Next up, I read You Deserve Each Other by Sarah Hogel. This book follows Naomi and Nick, who are fiancés, who have definitely grown apart from each other and decided that they no longer want to be in a relationship. However, Nick's family has paid for a massively expensive, super big wedding for the both of them, and whoever calls off the engagement has to foot the bill for that giant wedding. So neither of them want to be the first to admit defeat, in a sense, and end up breaking off the engagement. So they both kind of decide that they're just going to make each other miserable to try and get the other one to break it off first. So the book follows them kind of pulling stupid pranks on each other, acting crazy, trying to do everything they can to make the other person hate them, but it kind of ends up pushing them back together, and they get to know their like true selves and the reasons that they fell in love in the first place over the course of the book. So it's like a lovers to enemies to lovers, which is interesting. I've never read a book like that before. I ended up giving this book 3 stars. I thought that it was okay. I really liked the premise of it and the storyline, but there wasn't enough like engaging drama or conflict for me to really stay entertained throughout the course of this book, and I definitely got bored in the last like 100 pages. So that's the reason I knocked it to 3 stars. It is a good book. A lot of people do really like it. But I've also seen a lot of mixed reviews. And I read this book from the 25th to the 28th. And then the final book that I read for the month of January was The Mistake by L. Kennedy again, and this is the second book in that off-campus series I mentioned previously. So this book is about Grace and John Logan, who typically goes by Logan, by the way, goes by his last name. What a hockey player move. And this book has a very unique storyline, at least in my opinion. So Logan is hockey player, whatever. He's known to be hooking up with all the girls, and Gracie is very much quiet, reserved, and she is a virgin. That is one of the tropes within this book, but they don't harp on it too much, which is okay with me. Anyways, Logan and Gracie meet on accident and end up spending the night together and kind of just watching movies, and they end up hooking up, but not going all the way, if you know what I mean. And Logan's like, whoa, that girl was actually really cute, but neither of them got each other's number. And so it's kind of like, where do we go from here? They end up meeting up again a couple times later. And then Logan makes a massive mess up and destroys Grace's trust, destroys her heart, everything. And Grace, being a strong female character, says, absolutely not, get out of my life. And the summer goes by. He keeps trying to talk to her as he realizes that he does really like her, and she basically is like, nope. So the premise of the book is Logan really fighting to get Grace back and prove to her that he is a good guy and that he just made a stupid mistake, hence the mistake. If you like a lot of groveling in a book, a lot of trying to win somebody back, that is definitely present in this book. I give it 4 stars. It was definitely not the deal, but it was a solid book and I did kind of enjoy it. I would have preferred it if Hannah from The Deal wasn't so heavily involved in this book. I feel like she was kind of she was just brought up too much for me. And second, one thing I really honestly probably the reason that this is a 4-star is because the first time, this isn't really a spoiler, the first time that Logan and Grace meet, he literally says she wasn't drop dead gorgeous. And then she's like the main... Why would you say that, dude? Why would you include that? So that kind of knocked her down a little. And I read that book from the 29th to the 31st. All right, guys, that is my January wrap up. I hope you enjoyed it. I had a really good reading month. My average rating for the month was 3.44 stars, so not too bad. I definitely read a couple bummers, but I did have a couple really great reads, and my book of the month is definitely The Deal. That is the best book I read this month. I'm definitely looking forward to next month. So far on my list of TBRs for February specifically, I have Ricochet by Krista and Becca Ritchie and Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. So if you want to hear about my thoughts on that, go ahead and subscribe and like this video so you can see that when I post it. And I look forward to seeing you guys soon. Bye!